Hi everyone, this is Erica. I'm taking you on a biodiversity tour at our local Frenchtown Road Conservation Park. This is about 30 minutes away from my home near Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Here, the Comeet and the Amite rivers actually meet and create a very species-diverse bottomland hardwood forest with low swampy areas. It's about 500 acres of conservation space with private homes in the center. One of the first organisms we saw on this hike was the golden silk orb weaver. This spider is also known as the banana spider, and it's common in swamps and forests in the southeastern US. Typically, you see the larger females here on the web, and the males, they're a little smaller and more mobile. The dwarf palmetto is native to the southern U.S. We see it a lot here in moist, swampy areas in Louisiana, but most of the trunk actually grows underground, which makes it very cold tolerant. Another common plant we saw on our hike was the glade fern. This understory plant is typically found in moist, woody areas. The bald cypress is another common swamp tree. It often develops knees under wet conditions, as you see here. The wood is very rot resistant, which historically has led to cypress trees being over-harvested. It is actually the state tree of Louisiana. Here we see the southern magnolia. It is a common tree native to Louisiana. It has large, white, very aromatic blooms. The seeds develop in pods, as you see, and it's an evergreen tree that does actually drop its leaves, but those leaves are very slow to decompose. Poison ivy is one that we're all pretty familiar with, as it's common throughout the eastern half of the US. Typically, it's found in wooded areas. And interestingly, I found that poison ivy is sensitive to carbon dioxide levels. So as CO2 increases, poison ivy grows more quickly and produces more of the toxic sap that causes an allergic reaction in humans. We found an oak toad, which is a small toad often found in burrows under logs or debris. It is more active in daytime than most toads and is often considered the smallest toad species in North America. The red cedar is a coniferous evergreen with reddish bark that peels easily into strips. The wood is very resistant to rot and also very aromatic. The smell repels moths, which is why this wood is often used to make chests and closets. We also noticed a number of decomposers and specifically fungi on our walk. Although I couldn't identify the last fungus, this is the tree ear fungus, which is a common decomposer. It is edible and potentially has medicinal properties. Invasive species are the first threat I want to show you in this area. Our first invasive species is the elephant ear. It was introduced in 1910 as a substitute crop for potatoes, and it's still currently sold as an ornamental plant. It often invades wetland areas and outcompetes the native species, reducing biodiversity. This plant is called hen's eyes. It was originally from Southeast Asia and introduced around 1900 as an ornamental. It's still sold and planted here in the Southeast. It produces bright red seeds in the spring, which are dispersed by animals. It forms dense clumps in partial shade in moist but well-drained soils. The golden bamboo is native to Southeast China and was first introduced here in the 1880s. It forms dense monocultures and outcompetes native species. Bamboo is often used as a privacy screen and as a noise barrier, but it easily spreads by the thick underground rhizomes you see. Because of these rhizomes and how quickly the bamboo regenerates, the removal is often difficult once it becomes established. Even though this is an invasive species in the conservation area, this is actually one of my favorite parts of the park. On a windy day, you can actually hear the different pieces of bamboo knocking against each other, and it produces a very peaceful, otherworldly sound that you don't hear anywhere else. The second major threat to this ecosystem is habitat destruction, primarily by fragmentation. As you can see, there's been a corridor removed for the power lines and the railroad track. On this trip, we noticed that they are rebuilding the railroad track, which is leading to greater disturbance at the edge of this ecosystem. This conservation park is bordered by two rivers, a railway, and a major roadway, which means there's a lot of opportunity for our third threat, which is pollution. Oftentimes, we'll see chip bags, bottles, styrofoam cups, things that people throw out of their windows or leave behind when they visit the park. Closest to the major road, we often see oil slicks in the water or even bits of metal and plastic from the cars above. After a major flooding events, we've found buckets, chairs, and even propane tanks like the one you see here. In my opinion, this pollution is the most obvious visible threat that we've discussed so far, but it seems to be getting worse rather than better. I'm honestly often disheartened that folks in the nearby areas don't seem to adequately appreciate and protect this critical conservation park.